of cool choices, and then we'll cut right to Amanda. I know the exciting part of today is really going to be hearing Amanda Goetsch talk about her experiences using Cool Choices program at Inpro. Just as background for folks who are not as familiar with us, Cool Choices implements programs that engage employees around sustainability and really aim to accelerate an organization's initiatives. And how our program works, just really briefly, is we partner with the green team or the sustainability lead like Amanda in an organization and organize a program where employees form teams with colleagues. They report their sustainable actions, earning points and recognition for what they're doing in a way that really accelerates momentum around sustainability. So our online platform is transparent, so people start talking about what they're doing. They're sharing conversations, coaching each other, etc., to create some of that momentum. And again, we're going to hear much more from Amanda about how she integrated this into their efforts at Inpro. So today we're joined by Amanda Goetsch, who's the Corporate Sustainability Manager at Inpro Corporation. And Amanda has a master's in conservation biology and sustainable development from UW-Madison. She's been with Inpro since 2013 and really leading an array of sustainability efforts. She'll talk today about employee engagement, but she's also involved in global sustainability reporting, sustainable product innovation, product transparency initiatives, supply chain initiatives, all kinds of things. In addition to all of that, Amanda is the chair of the Wisconsin U.S. Green Building Council. She's a member of the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council Advisory Board, and she's a longtime member of the Jefferson County Sustainability Task Force. In a lot of ways, Amanda is like a lot of the folks we work with in companies. She lives and breathes sustainability. She's super enthusiastic about this. And part of our quest was to help her bring that enthusiasm to the rest of the team at Inpro. And she's going to talk about that. So Amanda, I'm going to turn things over to you now.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I am super excited to share our sustainable employee engagement story with you all today. Cool Choices was such a great platform for us, and it was a fantastic natural fit given our corporate culture. And so hopefully I can share really the intimate side that we went through on the Inpro engagement. And then I would be happy to answer any questions that I can towards the end. So we'll jump right in here. And I think Kathy is controlling my slides. There we go. Okay, great. Thank you. So if you're part of the sustainability discussion, the employee engagement discussion, or are kind of paying attention to what's going on in the workplace, you know that there is a changing generation and it's having an impact on business. Millennials, I've seen both studies that say that millennials have surpassed Gen Xers as the largest generation in the workforce, or they're going to very shortly. And really the millennial generation, they will be the leaders in our organizations in the future and are already having an influence on corporate culture and expectations in the workplace. 76% of millennials consider a company's environmental and social commitments when deciding on where to work, and 83% of millennials say that they'll be more loyal to a company, which of course goes right back to the bottom line, having a positive influence on employee attraction, engagement, and retention for the long term. So companies are starting to, or already have begun to rethink their approaches to that employee engagement. And overall, in a nutshell, millennials care about sustainability. They care about working with an organization whose values align with their own. And of course, there's always going to be give and take. And we have 4 different generations here in Inpro. So it's a slow change. It's an evolution, but it's definitely having impact on how senior managers and colleagues across the entire organization interact with each other, and really what companies stand for moving into the future. So if you want to go to the next slide, here at Inpro, we have a pretty unique corporate culture, I think, and I might be a little biased, but we have a very supportive atmosphere here, a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, but we understand that with that comes, rewards and just higher levels of engagement for throughout the entire organization. So overall, starting out, our corporate culture had a great platform for playing such a game such as Cool Choices. And serendipitously, the whole idea behind Cool Choices, I feel, is tiny actions, big impact. And so we really used that mantra as a campaign over the last 4 years. When I go and speak to classes at UW-Madison, this is something I really emphasize, that everybody can have a positive impact on the world around them, even if it's the tiniest action on a daily basis. And that's exactly what Cool Choices instills in the participants. So what we did here, we played twice, back in 2014 and then last year in 2016. We formed teams of up to 10 people, and people competed against other teams as well as on an individual level. And there were weekly challenges, which were very exciting, very fun. And on this slide, you can kind of see some of the actions that had come out of some of our weekly challenges. We had prizes. Some of them were very locally focused. So we have local businesses here that we gave out gift cards to. Some of them were geared toward camping, just very Wisconsin relatable prizes. You can see that people are smiling and having a great time. We had team challenges, and so the one on the bottom right, that team was illustrating their action of carpooling, and I think they're trying to mimic Mario and Luigi with those mustaches. We had a bring your own plate to lunch challenge, and so up at the top there you can see Carlos and Matt. They got creative because they wanted to be competitive in the game, and they're using a Tupperware container as their plate, and they're sharing. So people got creative. It was a lot of fun. Just briefly, in 2014, we played for 8 weeks, and we had 51% of our employees register, so that was about 250 people, give or take a few. And across those 8 weeks, we had a 98% participation rate, which means that almost all of those employees who had registered played a card every day. The impact, the positive impact, was really something that impressed me by the end of those 8 weeks. If the two stats that stood out to me were, if we kept up those actions over 12 consecutive months, we would have abated about 300,000 pounds of CO2 with those small actions and saved around $200,000 collectively. So not only are these tiny actions every single day having a positive impact on our natural environment and communities, but also really positively impacting people's pocketbooks, which we all know is a huge incentive for people. In 2016, we played again just because we had so much success and excitement in 2014. And that time, in 2016, we adjusted our play a little bit. We played for 6 weeks. We had slightly lower registration, and there were a couple of internal activities going on in parallel with this game, and so we were doing a wellness challenge, and I think we played toward the summer months when more people were on vacation and stuff like that. So, you know, when we play again in the future, we'll consider other activities going on and probably do a better job at scheduling around those. But we still had pretty good participation overall. We had 48% of our employees register last year with a 97% participation rate. The great thing for me as a sustainability professional, the first time around we played pretty soon after I had started here at Inpro and my role was new. So at the beginning, I had a lot of my colleagues coming up to me asking if I worked with the DNR, if I was there to shut off the computers and take away their car keys, and none of that was my purpose for coming on board. But in 2014, Cool Choices really was an opportunity for me to break the ice with all of our employees and get everybody comfortable with the term sustainability, get people thinking about what it means to Inpro at an organizational level, and then what it means to people on a personal level as well. So a great thing that came out of the results, one of the challenges is to suggest ways to continuously improve our sustainability principles internally. And so I think in the first time we played, I ended those 8 weeks with about 800 different employee suggestions on how we can make Inpro a more sustainable organization. And what we've been working on over the past few years now is really funneling out some of those suggestions and then finding the people who recommended them and making them the champions of that initiative. And when you do that, people take ownership over it, they take pride in it, they get other people excited that maybe I don't communicate with on a regular basis. So for me, it's really a great tool to leverage that continuous improvement moving into the future. You can go to the next slide. Great. So just to tell you a little bit more about what motivated our employees to play, and then I have some graphs coming up just to give you some of the results. Some of the main reasons people play the game, number one, they could save money. And if people have that as their reason for making the world a better place, then I'm all for it. So they could save money, number one. They liked the lifestyle changes and improvements that it brought to their lives outside of work. And so a lot of the actions include, healthier eating or more physical activity like biking or walking, and so it definitely has a benefit just beyond saving money and environmental improvement. A huge factor was that it was fun, and I think overall we do a pretty good job at creating enthusiastic joy around our sustainability initiatives. And if you're in this field, you understand that we have a lot of challenges ahead of us, and so it's really great when we can kind of take a different perspective and look at how sustainability doesn't always have to be daunting, and how we can make positive impacts with just tiny fun actions every single day. Some other reasons why employees played the game: we had tremendous support from our senior management and colleagues throughout the organization. And then again, getting back to something I mentioned at the beginning, it's just part of our culture here. So we do have a lot of employee engagement activities around wellness and safety. And so having employee engagement around sustainability was a really natural fit, and it kind of fit into the cadence of activity here at Inpro. I really like this graph. This was part of our post-game report, which, being a sustainability nerd, I love looking at the results that come from the Cool Choices team. So thank you, Kathy, and everybody at Cool Choices for that. There's some really valuable data that comes out of this. And what I really like about this chart is that it shows that people didn't just talk about the game and their actions while they were here at work, but they went home and they spoke to their partners and spouses. They spoke, of course, with their teammates and other colleagues at work. This is probably high for Inpro, just because we do have this fun, competitive atmosphere here. And so I'm sure, at least on my team, people made sure their teammates were keeping up with playing cards, even on the weekends, and if they didn't, they got some slack for that. And then pressuring other colleagues in a positive way to keep up their actions. It's really nice to also see that this conversation around sustainability extended into people's children and friends, extended family, and even their neighbors. So, you know, we have that tiny action, big impact happening here at work, triple bottom line benefits for Inpro, triple bottom line benefits for people at home, and now we're even extending into the community, which is fantastic. The next slide just shows some of the top cards that were played, and so there are some really low-hanging fruit options for people to implement at home, and I think sometimes we take for granted some of these smaller actions, but they really do have a huge impact when you have 500 plus people doing them at the same time. So one of the top cards was switching your furnace fan from continuous to automatic, drinking tap water instead of bottled water. This is one I always think about because I do a lot of commuting, and so now that it's a little bit warmer outside, I'm always thinking of that 40 miles per hour, turning on and off my AC depending on how fast I'm going. One of the more humorous cards that was played quite frequently was the avoiding jackrabbit driving, which is sudden starts and stops in your vehicle. We have a lot of large vehicle drivers here at Inpro, and so you know, there's a lot of enthusiasm around cars here and fast cars, and so trying to instill the habit of not speeding up to a red light or not accelerating quickly was something that we joked around about a lot, which is fun because now people remember it. So I'm not going to go through all of those, but you can kind of see what cards were played the most. And they all have a very positive impact. The next three slides are pretty similar, but it will show you all the pre-game survey results versus the post-game survey results. And so the three stats that we're going to be looking at now are saving energy, saving water, and reducing gasoline. And you can see here on the energy slide that there was improvement during the 8 weeks, and these are all results from our 2014 game. You can see before the Cool Choices game, there were some people who were not doing anything with regard to energy efficiency and saving energy, and by the end of the game, all of those who had responded to the survey, they were at least doing something. And so we do see some pretty drastic improvements between what people were doing and the habits they developed after the game. So this is the energy slide. The next one is saving water. Again, pretty similar trend right there. And then the final one is the gasoline usage. And we do see some individuals who were still doing nothing with regard to reducing gasoline, but we see increases in people who are doing a little and trending toward a lot. So that was really great to see. It's also interesting to consider kind of gasoline prices. I think they were a little bit higher back then than they are now, and so I'll have to kind of look into the comparisons between 2014 and 2016, and then when we play in the future, and that would be something of interest to me. So those are just some results, and then there's always really great user feedback at the end of the game. We have a couple of photos here. In 2014, we had a large celebration, which was so much fun. And you can see there Raj, he is now working with the River Alliance, I believe. But Raj came down to Inpro and we filled up our cafeteria. We had lunch catered in, and it was really important for us to celebrate these small wins and really say that they are tiny actions that you've been doing for 6 to 8 weeks, but they're really important. They're not only important to you and your families, but they're important to Inpro as well. So overall, The game helped us enhance our corporate culture, which we already had a pretty good feel for, and it laid a baseline for us to integrate other initiatives down the road. Again, when you have engaged employees, they're usually happier, which is great for business. People feel a sense of pride aligning themselves with organizations who can authentically say and back up that they are working toward a more sustainable future. For those of you who are interested in playing Cool Choices in the future, it is very worth it. It is a lot of fun, and it's very simple for you as a game manager. There were some pretty drastic changes between 2014 and 2016, kind of on the back end of things, and they were all fantastic changes to the software. A lot was automated between those years, while still offering some customization. So we have our environmental management system at Inpro, and so some of the cards I wanted people to name some of our objectives and targets for the year and stuff like that. So Cool Choices does a great job with making it very simple for people to integrate the game into their workplaces while also remaining very flexible in the types of actions you want your employees to take part in. Communication is great with the Cool Choices team, which is very much appreciated. I know everybody's very busy, and so that quick and clear communication is essential. Again, I have so many suggestions to go through from my colleagues, and again, each one has a champion, which makes it easier to instill that autonomy in my colleagues. And then again, the actions save people money, and hopefully they are now habits and they are impressive to their families and friends and church groups and community members, and maybe more people will take part. So overall, a very positive experience. I could go on and on, but I know that we don't have much time today on the webinar. So again, if you want to follow us on Twitter, our sustainability account is @InProGreen, and you'll see the hashtag #TinyActionsBigImpact pop up quite frequently. And we're going to be doing some exciting stuff with this at our Greenbuild trade show, so please stay tuned for that. And really along the lines of Tiny Actions Big Impact, if not now, when, and if not me, who? And we really try to leverage that question to all of our employees when we're playing the Cool Choices game and getting them engaged around sustainability. So with that, I can take any comments or questions, and I'll turn it back over to Kathy.
Terrific. Thanks, Amanda. And for attendees, all of you are probably familiar with, you've got that go to webinar box on the side. There's a spot there where you can type in a question, and a couple of questions are already typed in here, so I will read those. And kind of the first one is sort of a maybe a mixed one for us. So Amanda talked about that participation was almost 50% at Inpro, and an attendee is wondering if that's typical participation, and I would say it's not. Our average across all kinds of institutions is probably about 35% participation, and that really varies based on the kind of organization. So typically we would say that participation is highest in office settings where everyone is at a computer, and it's sort of, there are certain advantages to an online system in an environment like that. Amanda's at Inpro is a little bit unique for us, that they achieved essentially 50% in a setting that's partly manufacturing, where folks are not at all at desks with computers, is really significant, and it speaks to the kind of enthusiasm that they brought to this. Kind of as a follow-up to that, Amanda, you talked about leadership support for doing this. Can you elaborate on that? How is leadership involved in these initiatives?
Sure. And just really quickly on that whole participation side of the equation, it was very easy to get people who are checking their email constantly throughout the day involved. It was a little bit of a challenge to get our manufacturing colleagues involved just because they don't spend that much time on a computer. And so we had to get creative with just kind of word of mouth and me speaking to different departments, putting up signage. We put stuff up in Spanish and English to make sure that we were being as inclusive as possible. But yes, that is always a challenge. As far as leadership support for doing this, I think there was a lot of enthusiasm from our senior management team and a lot of healthy competition as well. So our COO definitely wanted to compete with the president. And so they were all on separate teams, and I think they also had some buy-in because they needed to show the importance of sustainability and instill that confidence in this position, especially in 2014 when it was new and some people were still confused about my role here. When I started at Inpro, I interviewed with all of our senior managers, and so they were all invested as well in seeing this platform be a success. And so there was a lot of communication via email from our CEO to the entire company, encouraging people to get involved. And once you see that message come through, people can jump on pretty quickly.
Thanks, Amanda. I think that's really helpful, and just for folks who aren't as familiar with how our program works. So when the COO at Inpro is participating in the game with employees, that means that if I'm a rank and file employee out in the warehouse, I can log into the system and I can see how my score compares to his score. And I think in organizations where that works, it can be some additional magic in this, that people are motivated by being able to see those leaderboards and see how they're comparing to other folks. We had a kind of related question here about, is there an app for people who aren't using computers as often? And so we should clarify that the platform is mobile optimized, so people can play on their phones as well as their computers. It's just that because we're working with workplaces, it's often people sort of at their desktops who are checking email and learning about the program and signing up. But certainly, probably about a quarter of our participants these days play mostly on their phones. And that varies a little bit by location, but that's overall, I would say that's the average. There's also a question here about, has Cool Choices ever been used in universities? And we've had conversations, we've had university teams, and we've done some community scale work where universities have participated as part of the community, but we've not done a dedicated university initiative. So maybe you'll be the first. There are certainly interesting opportunities in universities, both across campus facilities and obviously student behaviors too. I'm looking at the only other thing that I was going to just mention, Amanda talked back here about kind of people having those conversations with others, whether at work or at home, and maybe a useful stat for folks to know, kind of across our programs, we see that about a little over half of all participants talk to someone at least once weekly about sustainability during the program, which we think is a really good sign that there are those conversations happening, again, in a variety of places. With that, I am not seeing more questions. kind of as a closeout, if you have a question, type it in quick while I'm sort of doing this, and then we'll address it. But we will send folks a recording of the webinar, and there are other webinars you can sign up for, other information on our website. We're glad to talk to folks about how our program works, or how some of the principles behind our program can help you do what you're doing to accelerate sustainability. With that, everyone have a terrific Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you again, Amanda, for being part of this today. And have a great rest of your day, everyone.